work and mission work, and it's a great university. So they brought her in, and she spent 4 years. It was all over the news, and they slammed her, and they, just really, it was horrible. And so I got up and I spoke at the church, and she came up to me and had me a card and said, "Will you call me?" And I did, and went to see her. When I got there, she had the provost, the dean, the director of spiritual formation, everybody. And she said, "Before we open this up to discussion, I want to ask Kathleen a question." Now, I get a lot of questions. And I get a lot of stories, which is wonderful, but I get a lot of questions, and so I thought, okay, it's going to be what? And her question was, how do you get out of bed in the morning? And I was so taken back. And I said, I think I even said, what? And she repeated it. And so everybody's like staring at me, and I said, by faith. I just have to walk in faith. Because you see, we, in my life, and probably the majority of yours, sorry that I'm looking around, there's a few young people back there, thank you for coming, but in our life, we will never see success for our work if you're basing success on the world's idea of success. We're not going to see it, ladies and gentlemen. We're not going to see it. But remember, success in God's eyes is so different than success in the world. And I said to them, you see, every day when I get in bed in faith, I know that something's going to happen today that in God's eyes is going to be success. And it could be just one girl walking into the Mission Viejo Clinic and she changes her mind. And that happens now every day. We're over 5,000 babies saved, from in our medical clinics. It's amazing because of the volunteers and the work and the staff and everything they're doing. I'm never in there anymore and I miss it. But so, ladies and gentlemen, don't ever give up. And I know you don't because you're here tonight. We're not going to overturn Roe in our time. I mean, maybe, but it's going to take, as the Dean of Formation said, it'll take a cataclysmic, I can never say that word and I got it. It'll take a cataclysmic, something horrible to happen to get people down on their knees and realizing what they've done. And if that happens in our lifetime, if it doesn't, the success that we share is still what we did, Marilyn, 32 years ago, and that is if one baby survives because of the work that we're doing. And we can't lose that focus. I take on Planned Parenthood, but my focus still is that one baby, and to know that when I go to the hospital and I walk up to that window and I look at those babies, they're all survivors. In today's world, they are all survivors. But I know for a fact that all the women that come to the clinics because of you all, because of your financial support and your prayers and your sidewalk counseling and your volunteering and whatever you do in the pro-life movement, that I know for a fact that we can all look in the mirror and say, we have changed a life and therefore we have changed the world. I look at my son Toby and realize that what I'm doing is because that one child made a profound impact in the world and he never saw the light of day. So don't stop speaking for the unborn. Don't get discouraged. Lift each other up. Lift me up in prayer. I'm so thankful to be here tonight with so many faces that have walked with me for so many years and loved me unconditionally, even when I've done stupid things. And you just say, you'll just try again. And I've done stupid things. And I thank you for that. So God bless you. God bless you. God bless you, St. Killian, and all of you that have walked with me. The success of today is the birth choices of tomorrow. And the fact that we are building a legacy of clinics that is going to go up against Planned Parenthood in California, maybe nationally, and maybe internationally. Not in my lifetime, not in our time, but we're handing over to the next generation a foundation of clinics that are really going to compete at the level of Planned Parenthood. Never again will you hear that we cannot shut down Planned Parenthood in that poor community because they're the only health clinic serving poor women. And they were right, and shame on us. But today, we can say, oh yeah, there is. There's a birth choice in that community, and they're doing exactly what they're doing, but they're doing it faith-based, and they're respecting life, and they're bringing back the legacy of the respect of life in the womb in every one of those communities, and through that, we will succeed in this next generation. And they will look at you and say, on our watch, abortion will end in this country. And I, for one, believe them, because they're amazing. So pray for this next generation coming up. We've left them a mess, but we're building a foundation, and they're going to stop abortion in this country. We'll be up there looking down, and we'll all be saying, right on, yay. So thank you so much. I'm going to open up for questions. I've taken 40 minutes of your time, and but when you get me, you get me. So anything, if I can't answer it, I'll turn it over to Alejandra. Yes.
Since most of us are here from Mission Diego, explain to us what happens in that office over there in Planned Parenthood and that stuff.
Yes, that office does chemical abortions. It doesn't do, of course, surgical abortions. Planned Parenthood is set up, you already know this. Planned Parenthood is set up where they refer the surgical abortions to their Orange facility. And many of you Sidewalk Council out there, don't ever stop doing that. I can't. I have a restraining order, but you can. But here they do chemical abortions. So keep that in mind what I told you, that they're going to become stronger because they're going to switch. And the chemical abortion industry for them is going to be huge. So where you're praying and outside that clinic is so important because now those girls are going in. And the thing is, you have to understand this. Girls will no longer be going to Planned Parenthood for their abortions, most of them. And so your only opportunity to pray for them is at the clinics like the one here when they go in to get those pills. Now what's going to happen is those pills will be in vending machines and eventually they'll be over the counter. And then eventually it'll be prescription, eventually it'll be over the counter, just like the morning after pills. But until then, our only opportunity now is when they're going in. Where they used to go in and, now they're still going in for abortions, you're going to see those numbers decrease. And they're going in for RU46 because it's where Planned Parenthood is headed. So that means these girls are going to be having their abortions in their bedrooms. And how do we compete with that? So the importance is you've got to stay doing it because that's where you're going to meet them when they're going in to get those pills. It's our only opportunity.
Follow up on that.
Yeah.
In the high school, is the high school referring these kids to this Planned Parenthood?
Pardon me?
In the high school,
yes.
Are they referring kids to this Planned Parenthood?
They're there because of Mission High School. Yeah. Mission High School just feeds them, and they have Mission High School students that come after school and answer the phones and work in that clinic. They've always had Mission High School. It feeds their clinic, it feeds their numbers of staff, and then the kids go right back over to Planned Parenthood or promoted. They're there because of that high school. That high school and also Saddleback College. So, yes. And thank you for all your volunteering at the Birth Choice Center.
I just wanted to add something because I volunteer at the Birth Choice in Mission Viejo, and you kind of skimmed across the STD testing.
Yes.
We do several STD tests a day, and we get an opportunity to speak of the dignity of one's person, the sanctity of what your sexual person is, and we can stop them at that point from becoming pregnant. So that is, I can't speak enough about how important that is to get them before.
So important, thank you. Because so many people say, why are you doing STD testing and treatment? And I said, because we have to stop focusing just in the womb. We have to pick our head up and look at the young couple that's in a crisis pregnancy. But then we got to turn around. And until we start impacting these millions of kids, and they're just dropping into that, we got to stop them here, and we've got to teach them that what they're doing to their bodies by having this crazy, what's going on out there. And these are, 12, we had in Placentia, we had 4 girls come in, 1 13, 3 14, all of them having anal sex. 2 of them with the same boy, and they said, oh, we don't need a pregnancy test, we're not even pregnant, and they were outside, and they said, yes, but let me tell you, the nurse said, yeah, but let me tell you what you are doing. And so they're able to educate these girls and say, what are you doing? But it's the mentality. They're getting these texts. This is for medical things. Parents aren't teaching. The teachers aren't talking. Nobody's talking about it. And our children are dying.
And it gives us an opportunity.
Yes.
Friends and princesses. I always tell
yes.
every one of them, you're a princess. And
so important.
You do any different than that. Or you know you're a princess.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Let me tell you another thing that's coming out. We talked about the fire department, our hospitals. I ran into a nurse, it wasn't here, I was speaking in Arizona, but she said it's everywhere. And she said, I'm a cleft palate doctor, she's an audiologist and doctor, and she said, you know what I do now? They moved me over in full time. I'm dealing with young people that come to the hospital for surgery because they have an STD in their throat or in their mouth. And she said, you know, I never saw this coming. That's all she does. And in her hospital, she gets 6 to 7 new cases, sometimes 10, she said, a week. She said, you need to understand something, and this is the unspoken. You don't hear this out there. She said, girls, what happens when they get there, and they come and they think it'll go away, or they can't see it and have a sore throat, they think it takes a while. By the time they discover it, boys get cancer in the lip and then on the tongue, and girls get it down in their throat, and they lose their soft palate. And so these young girls will live the rest of their lives, and they have to learn how to swallow and talk by the time, and it's just, there's no cure. Because if the STD is herpes, there's no cure. And the young boys are getting it in their tongues and in their lips. And she said it's epidemic levels across the country. You never hear it. Yet Planned Parenthood keeps pumping out on their hook up this weekend tax to drive them down this path. You know, well, why? Because it's a huge money for them. Yeah. But their biggest number is contraception. And but with RU46 being reclassified, it's going to be huge. I mean, huge. And then, of course, it doesn't really matter because they've got Obamacare.
Contraception is just a
Yeah.
way to because everybody that I counsel is in there on
They're all on contraception. Yeah.
You know, whatever they're doing, different, you know.
So, thank you. Yes. No. I know. Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, we're hoping that by branding birth choice, that's a good point on the coming together. Number one, we have to. The other thing is, I'll tell you another thing we have to do. It's not only coming together as a pro-life movement, but I don't know if you guys realize this, but 4 of my clinics now have been moved from standalone clinics into clinics with other faith-based clinics. So, for example, my Orange Clinic is in with the Lestanac Clinic. Lestanac is a primary care, critical care, mental health, dental, hearing, pediatrics, diabetes. CHOP comes in with there. So it's a combination of CHOP, the Lestanac Clinic, primary, critical care, and us in there now. Our Santa Ana Clinic closed and just opened. Our Santa Ana Clinic opened up last week and is in a clinic with the Hurt Family Clinic, which is the Orange County Rescue Mission. And they are primary care, critical care, mental health. Of course, they have their housing, they have their food bank, and they have their clothing bank. And they provide unbelievable services, doctors, and they have also a relationship with St. John's Health System, which so now we're in there. So do you understand what's happening? We now, when they get calls and it's preventative care, they're going to take over my well woman care. I'm going to take over their STD testing so I can teach them, because they don't, because that's not what they do. But now they're going to send them to us because they said our only option would be contraception and they wouldn't do it, but they're being forced to do it under Obamacare. And so we take them and we give them our well woman care. And now when we get all these, especially in underserved areas, we can serve the whole family. And we can keep them out of. Now, Planned Parenthood might become a primary care clinic. Guess what? Inform my sites on primary care, on critical care, on preventative care, on pregnancy care. I have pediatric care, on diabetes care, and I can go on and on and on. They can't compete with that. So and as a standalone clinic in Santa Ana, my rent was $4,700 a month. My rent with the Orange County Rescue Mission is $500 a month. My rent in Irvine, when I moved into Orange, I rented Irvine was $5,000 a month. My rent now in Orange, which was the group that I moved over there, is $0. And I have cut $1 million out of my budget. We share staff, we share supplies, we share rent, and they get funding at a much, because they're not pro-life, so they get funding through health providers and through the state and the federal government. Even though they're faith-based, but the money is directed towards particular testing, cancer screening. I get no funding. because I'm a pro-life clinic, and I will never, ever change that, so therefore I'll never get it, because they have already made sure that pro-life organizations will never get any of the federal funding or state funding. So, yeah. So I want to share that with you to understand. And one other thing before I forget, when you go on birchworks.com, and it's my client website, you're all going to go, oh, she's lost her mind. Because it's going to say what kind of contraception is best for you. One of the other questions. One other question is, if you're going to have an abortion, what do you need to know? And you're going to think, my God, Kathleen has lost her mind. Ladies and gentlemen, understand that I am reaching the client, the patient, I'm not reaching you. I'm not lying to them. When they come in and find out what contraception is best for them, guess what the answer is? No contraception, abstinence. When they find out what's the questions they need to ask to an abortion if they have an abortion, let me tell you, if you ever read those questions, you stop and think, what am I doing? So you hand them the questions and say, now you want to talk about it? So people go on my website, and I've had people nationally blast and send national things out. Do not support this organization. They're pro-abortion, and they're an abortion clinic, and we are not. But you know what? God takes care of them. I've got to reach the client, and I've got to reach them where they're at. And I've got to put out there what they're looking for. And then I have to put in there, you know, what's the best contraception for you? That's all I say. And they call and say, we need to come in and talk to a nurse, and they come in. So that's why it's on there. So when people say to you, Kathleen's lost her mind, say, no, she hasn't. You know? Yeah, a lot of talk. Any other questions? Yes.
So much Catholic orientation here tonight. I'm just wondering about how much assistance, support, and direction you get from our evangelical sisters and brothers from mission communities to Saddleback.
Yeah. You know, I have found that the smaller, to say it kindly, I found that the smaller churches, the small evangelical churches, Pentecostal churches are phenomenal. Let me tell you, I go in there and they give me the whole service. I go up and they have 2 services, 3 services on a Sunday morning, and there's an Irish Catholic standing up there talking to them, and they don't care. It's quite exciting. Now, it still doesn't mean they're going to come into a Catholic church where, like, we'll have an event at Santa Ana, California, and we'll come, thank you. If we have an event at Crystal Cathedral or Christ Church, they don't come, and I have to understand that, and that's okay, because you deal with them, and you just say, okay, I'm Catholic, and I know we're going to come, and we're going to come because we know, and they're getting there, The one thing I think that we've been able to do is pro-life is uniting what God wants, and I don't think any other movement has done that, and my board is evangelical, Pentecostal, and Catholic. And I can tell you how many times they say, you know, I had a total different opinion of Catholics until I come in this board, or I met you, Kathleen. I have many more pastors out there from the evangelical and the small community churches getting involved, and don't get me wrong, the Catholic churches are supporting this. Our Catholic churches have 1 priest, and these evangelical churches have 10 ministers, and so they have an outreach minister that will work with me. We just don't have that. So it's not that I don't get support from the Catholic diocese. I get a lot of support. Your Pennies from Heaven, we get about $100,000 from Pennies from Heaven, ladies and gentlemen. I cannot thank you. The Knights have spent over $350,000 these last 2 years in buying ultrasounds. I cannot thank you all enough for that. Every clinic has a 3D 4-color, and a 2D if we need it, when we have clinics that have 2 examiners, which will be, we're building out and tearing down Mission Viejo inside, so get ready. We'll put the mobile clinic outside, and we're going to redo it and put in another exam room. And I have 2 doctors, Catholic doctors, that have come in and volunteer their services, that are one retired and one still working, who's going to come 1 day a week. It's amazing. So that answers it. I bless them. I have some very generous individual evangelical donors. I had one that put $2 million in the table up in LA, and it's being dispersed to over 5 organizations over the next 2 to 3 years, and they're working with us. And, you know, and then we also have U.S. Conference Catholic bishops saying, you know what, we looked out there, we went to people, they said, go to Kathleen, they came to me. And so if they fund it and so pray, then it will help us go quicker into that model of affiliates and start going up against Planned Parenthood and much cheaper. They don't see it coming yet because we haven't posted it online. So you won't see it on our website because we're kind of going under that. I have to do that because they hate me. and they're watching me, and we just don't want the roadblocks put up yet until we're accredited, and I won't be accredited until a year from this month. So I'm going quiet as much as I can, so. Any other questions? I know you've been here a long time. It's 8:15. Heck, we got another couple hours. I'm kidding.
I just have one.
Yes.
My name is Kevin Callahan from the Pastoral Council. Some of you might not care. But what I wanted to bring up is the Pastoral Council, the same idea that Kathleen is talking about with regards to the whole life cycle with the person, both in the room and outside the room. The Pastoral Council will be putting together an initiative on human trafficking.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to be bringing Susan Durkin, who's going to be doing some work outside the liturgy after the new church building gets dedicated. And she's going to come to the community and start raising awareness with regard to human trafficking. And then we're going to work together with the youth ministry on that too for some of the younger people. Because it's all connected.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's the same attitude that, you know, still working together. So I just want to throw that out there for you guys so you become aware and you don't freak out when you see us start talking about that.
No, so good. And we partner with the Women's Global Center at Vanguard University on human trafficking, and we are seeing the girls because we're free, and so the pimps are bringing them to us because if they take them to Planned Parenthood, they have to pay. And so we're seeing, so all of our counselors have been trained on how to identify a woman that's being trafficked, and do what we can to get her separated from the man that's brought her in. That's another whole issue as far as the pain and sorrow of understanding that and the brokenness. But it is right beside us. By the way, the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops on the life issue have identified, you know, there's the social justice side, but on the life side, the two issues they are actually focusing on is abortion and human trafficking. And in my grant with USCCD, I will be partnering deeper with Sandy Morgan, who was one of the first women to start the LA Human Trafficking Task Force years ago. She's a phenomenal woman. Toby is there. I don't know if you know Toby is now working in it too and came out of Birchwood. So yes, and I'm glad you brought that up.
One of the comments, the question for you guys, you know, there's been a lot of controversy with regards to quote-unquote Catholic officers. And lately, this is all in like this.
Yes, I read it all.
You know, talking about how they battle and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
In your interactions with USCCD, is there a consciousness of awareness raising with regard to holding our officers for accountable for their positions, for example? I'd like to see USCCD a little bit more.
So would we all. Yeah, so would we all. And the answer to that is no and yes. There's some that do. There's some that are not afraid. I'm so sorry, it's been a long day in the names, but you see them. There's some that, like, for example, Cardinal O'Malley came out and said, not on my watch.
Right.
And I heard that he's now been made a special advocate to the Pope. He brought in 2 cardinals to work with, never done before, to advise him and direct him, and one of them is Cardinal O'Malley, first time in a U.S. Cardinal, and so we are very blessed. But that just came out just recently that he said, not here. You know, I know Cardinal Dolan, we are so blessed to have him. And he went in and took over the USCCB, and he's shaking them up. I mean, there's basically nothing like this but shaking it up. Many of you know what took place on the Catholic Campaign for Human Development. And over the last 2 years, they have ousted the staff, which was not easy to do. They had 25 years, and you don't let someone go 25 years without a loss. I mean, you know, it's a business. I mean, these are employees that are protected. And they did it in a way, I think they've been very successful at it, and I'm actually on that committee. I don't like telling people that, because I don't want my name to be up there like the Catholic Campaign for Human Development. But you know, now they got Kathleen, and she's this crazy woman, and she's gone over the other side, she's gone over the dark side. Actually, Cardinal Dolan said, I need a pro-life person on that committee. I would rather be on the pro-life committee that's run by some of the most staunch pro-life bishops and archbishops in the country. And I was like, I'm going to go in that room, you know, and I got to go in that room. But God is so amazing, because you see, he needed a strong pro-life person in that room because pro-lifers understand that there is a whole, there's life and life continues down. I mean, we are pro-life from the womb to the tomb. On the social justice side, there's been a little break off from that. And so they took me in, and so my last meeting, I said to them, I think what I've realized and why God had me here is I've realized on the side of where you're dedicated to poverty, USA, and those, but I think by talking to me, you realize that this committee, the Catholic Campaign for Human Development, and human development must start in the womb on this committee. And if we can make an impact here, it will filter down to our churches. And until social justice and pro-life come into a room and work together from the womb to the tomb, it's another battle that Satan is using to divide us. So I am doing what I can. I've committed to 3 years, and I've heard they're going to ask me for another 3 years, and I probably will say yes, because it's taken 3 years for us to really come together. So now I think we can really start doing some good work there. And by the way, the man that's now the executive director of the Catholic Campaign for Human Development is all pro-life, phenomenal out of Denver. And so we're making strides. So I agree. Life from the womb to the tomb, we must deal with the other issues. Human trafficking, to me, is the closest thing to my heart on understanding the next step. And, yeah. I know it's late, so if you have to leave, I won't be embarrassed, but I'll answer questions as long as you want me to. But you all can call my husband, tell him I'm not there.
There's a thing called,
Yes.
When a girl goes in...
No. Yes.
They're not investigating if she was raised by her father or whatever. My parents used to think they're raised in one family doctrine. And most of these fathers, if you go to the teenagers, and most of the fathers are like 40-year-old men.
Yes.
You know,
It's still on.
and that indicates no trouble.
There is no informed consent. There is no parental consent. There is no father's consent. There is no, I don't know if you all were watching the news not that long ago, where the politicians are coming out. It was all over and said, that the community owns the children. The community, the parents do not now have authority over their children. And this is what's being, you have to understand it. You have to think of Satan. The Wall Street Journal just did an article. If you haven't read it, you go on the Wall Street Journal, and it was probably a month ago. And it said, the new face of mom. And the Wall Street Journal said that, at the very end of this article, said that this nation is not in trouble financially because of Wall Street and greed and the housing market and so on and so forth. This nation, this is the Wall Street Journal, is in trouble because motherhood and marriage have been taken out of the fabric of our country. That now 86% of babies, it was girls, without a high school diploma, 86% of those babies are born outside of wedlock. 86%. It only goes down to 62% when you make women that have graduated from college. Now, what does that tell you? You see the results of this movement from the 60s, the whole drugs, plugs, jellies, and jams, to take the whole, Christ's view of why, he created us to procreate. And it's all gone. So therefore, why should you get married? And since fathers don't have a decision, why should they care? And now women have control of everything, and it's all a very relativism. Our world is moral relativism is being taught in our churches. I have to tell you, to answer your question, and whoever asked it, I was in a very large, it was not Saddleback, but I was in a very large church in Orange County, and it was Palm Sunday. I was not speaking. I was there as a guest for another group that was there, and I had to get up. I felt darkness. I felt oppressed. I couldn't breathe. I told my husband I had to get out of here, and he said, oh my gosh, you've got 3 board members behind you, and we're in the middle of this, row, it's like a theater, and this was big. I mean, there's 4,000 people in this thing. And I said, I don't care, I've got to get out of here. I've got to get out of here. And it was like I couldn't get out, and I started, and I realized I had to get out of there. Because he was teaching moral relativism. God has no law, that's what he said. God has no law. Religion puts law on all of you. Religion does that to make you feel guilt. God doesn't want guilt. You're going to lust. Don't worry about it. You're going to covet. Don't worry about it. You see, it's your personal relationship with Christ that's going to save you. Everything.